kind of took a pack map of Washington State, which contained all the packs of wolves in Washington State, and found out where they're congregated, kind of put my finger in the middle of that. It happened to be the very corner of Northeast Washington. I said, you know, I'm gonna move up there, and I'm gonna do something to help this situation before it becomes a full-blown out problem. And I kind of just did that. It was kind of an intense experience. I went up here for a weekend, found a place to rent that was willing to rent the home to myself, my horse, my 3 dogs, a couple of snakes, a couple of lizards, a parrot, 4 cats. I mean, I had a little menagerie, if you will. I was straight rolling Noah's Ark up in there, so it was kind of an interesting move. But they were really willing to rent that place to me. Part of the reason was it was kind of run down, so I ended up coming up here, looking at the place, said, you know, I can do something with that. I can kind of make it a livable home, and moved back, grabbed all my animals, came over Noah's Ark style, and basically sat there and went, what the heck am I gonna do? You know, while I'm fixing up this home, I'm thinking, what have you done? You've moved out to the middle of nowhere. You don't know anybody. You don't have any friends over here. There's no family over here. It was just always a interesting little point in time in my life when I look at it. And it was made even more interesting when I'd meet people of the public. When I first moved here, they were like, wow, you know, that's so neat that you've moved out here. And they're like, why'd you do that? And I was like, well, I'm going to try and do something to help wolves in the wild and help people that live in the wild with wolves. And he said, well, how are you going to do that? And I was like, well, I have no clue. You know, it's like I've thought about maybe writing a book about my experiences at Wolf Haven, imparting the knowledge that I've gained there. And I've thought about maybe doing some educational outreach out here. Toiled with the idea of taking people out in the mountains and showing them wolves, trying to get an interaction between people and animals, not in an unsafe manner by any means, but to see or hear a wolf out in the wild is incredibly impactful to a person, and I thought that'd be a good way to help kind of inject education and love for the natural world and its inhabitants into this community. And finally thought about my love for horses and my knowledge of wolves, and how could I couple those together? I've heard of this thing called range riding, I thought to myself, and I said, self, how are we going to do that? So I called up the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and asked them, are you looking to hire any range riders? They said, you know, currently we're not. We're actually not looking to do that, and thank you for the interest, but we'll contact you if need be. And I said, you know, okay. I really felt that was the wave of the future of how to coexist with a lot of large, potentially dangerous carnivores and other potentially dangerous large herbivore animals. Basically, kind of said, okay, well, you don't want to hire me. What's the next step? I'm going to create a business, the first and currently only small business in Washington State that focuses on human-wildlife conflict mitigation, utilizing non-lethal techniques. That sounds like a good idea. It's a big, long name. I got always kind of weird questions and faces when people would ask me what I do in the grocery store, and I'd tell them that exact same sentence. Anyways, I started that business, called up to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and said, hey, would you be willing to contract my business? And they said, yeah, that's a great idea. We love what you're doing here. I said, okay, that's odd, but works for me. It kind of went from that, just started to learn the ropes and figure out how I was going to do this and how I was going to accomplish this goal of helping wolves coexist with humans and their human interests that potentially are going to lead to conflict. So about a year and a half went by of me figuring that out, and something really unfortunate happened. I was given a call. I was called one day, and the person that was renting me the house said, hey, we sold the house. Great news. And I was like, well, that just depends on what perspective you're looking at that from. But she said, yeah, we sold it, and we're going to need you out in about 3 days because the person's, you know, coming in. So I ended up moving out, and I said, you know, I'm never going to do that again because now it's winter. My family and I are now put out in the streets, basically, and I didn't know what to do. And up here, winter, as you can see, there's some snow behind me. It's much different than the winter that I grew up with on the western side of Washington State. And so I kind of scratched my head and said, okay, I'm going to move down the street. There's a good piece of public land. I'm going to just stay there for a night or two and try and wrap my head around what just happened. So real quickly, I figured out that I don't want to put myself in that position again. I will not rent. I'm going to buy a place. And until then, I need to figure out what to do. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to live out in the mountains and work from my field sites. And then on the days that I'd normally be coming home to a home that I'm renting that I'd barely spent any time at, I'm just going to stay out in the field and continue to work. So that point, that option, that opportunity was exactly that. It was an opportunity to delve, head first into this and just really immerse myself in this, and it helped tremendously on how to figure out how to do this. So I spent 7 months homeless by definition, out in the mountains, just hitting it hard, working and trying to figure out how to range ride in Washington State. Hugely rewarding. I mean, that was one of the funnest times that I've had. I mean, if I was bored with my scenery and my front yard was getting old, I just moved to a different part of the allotment that I was assigned to. Really thankful for that. Not in the beginning, hard to see the forest through the trees, so to speak. It was really difficult in the beginning to try and wrap my head around what to do and how to do and why that happened to me. So after about 7 months went by, I started thinking I should probably look for a home again, because winter's coming. It's right around the corner. So at that time, I had met not too many people. And when I'd meet people, they said, "Hey, you're that wolf guy." And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess, yeah, sure. I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you, but wolf guy will suffice, I guess." So anyways, I had an ex-girlfriend at the time when I was starting to look for a home. She called me up one day and said, "Hey, I know this guy that's got this home. I think it'd be a great fit for you and what you're trying to do. Check it out. Go talk to him." So I call up the guy. We meet. We start chatting it up. Find out real quick that he's, in love with the natural environment. He thinks wolves are extremely fascinating. And he even brings up this facility that he did a symbolic adoption at one year, years ago. And he says, "Have you ever heard of Wolf Haven International?" And I said, "Well, that's funny that you mentioned that. I actually worked there for all my 20s. And he said, "Do you know Windsong the wolf?" And I said, "Well, I don't know Windsong personally. I never met her personally, but I do know exactly who you're talking about. She passed away right before I started there." And we kind of hit it off there, and he's like, "Wow, what a small world." And he goes, "Well, you might be curious on the fact of who built this property that you're looking at." Or not the property. I guess God built the property that I was looking at. But he said, "You might be curious on the fact of who built the home and the barn that you're looking at to buy." And I said, "Well, who's that?" And he says, "Do you know a guy named Bill White?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I know that name. I know that name from the newspapers. That was the Whites were the first known people, at least, to poach that wolf pack that I mentioned earlier, the Lookout Pack. They were the family that were taking them out of the wild and killing them." I said, "Wow, that's insane, to be looking at a place that the gentleman that built the home that I'm looking at actually was the first guy to kill the first pack in my state since the 1930s. I thought, well, that's either serendipitous or just the creator's way of putting me right where I need to be. So I thought that was really a special moment to find out that that's who owned the property before the guy that I bought it from. Go and take a walk around the property. I'm looking around and all this amazing, amazing land that I'm gifted and honored and just blessed to be on right now. There's a clearing not too far from me back over here over my right shoulder that you can't see right now. It's a clearing that Bill White actually harvested the trees, did a man-made clearing, and utilized those trees to build the home that I've been living in. And as we're looking at this clearing, I see this longhouse and this big lodge in my mind's eye start to form. And I start to look around, and I'm not even kidding. I mean, I'm starting to watch this facility be built in my head. And it was just this really powerful moment of mine that I said, I belong here. I need to be here. I need to do whatever I can and work however hard I need to get this property and to be a part of this property. I've been here for 6.5 years, so it'll be 7 this year. Very honored to be on that part of this path. So touching bases a little bit on that is full circle again. I'm going to end up building an educational facility here that offers some educational opportunities that I was not offered when I was a young man. Younger. I'm very young, very sexy still. For all you women, I'm also single. So I thought, I want to be able to offer some of these courses, some of these classes, some of these skills that I'd never had the opportunity to learn. Kind of teach biology, teach the sense of, just nature in a different format than what's currently offered in mainstream school systems. And try and just kind of battle the ignorance that kind of impedes wildlife conservation with the two-handed sword of education. And it was mind-blowing to me to see this property, to know who had it before me, to know that I have an opportunity to have it, and to know what I'm going to do with it. So I said, let's go sign papers. I think I would like to do this. I made him an offer. We struck up a deal, and we've been friends actually since then. Really amazing opportunity to be here. and very excited to build this educational facility. So amongst many other of the things that I'm doing, that's phase 2 is what I call it. I got a 4-phase plan of conservation that I'm sure I'll expound on as we go on and take these adventures together. It's been just super rewarding. Very, very thankful to be where I'm at. It's been a ton of hard work. The experience has been, again, I just have to use that word, ineffable. I mean, you can't put words to it. This experience of doing what I'm doing has been key to finding me, to discovering more of me. I remember when I first started working with wolves in captivity in my 20s, I thought I was very much leaning on the side of, well, these ranchers are the problem and just get them off the landscape and then we'll have no problem, right? And that was a very ignorant and idealistic way to view something with unrealistic expectations to get there. And since then, I've come to a different form of understanding and a different form of looking at this whole situation. I have become friends with many of the ranching members of this community out here. What got me in there was trust, basically, and that was earned by just oodles of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. And once people, whatever your beliefs are, whatever your differences are, once they see that you're really in it for the real deal, they start to appreciate you and trust you, and then everything else can kind of follow and fall into place from that point. So I was really shocked to know how amazing these people were, and that sounds kind of like an ass thing to say, but it's like what mainstream ranching is portrayed in the media is not what most of these people are. These people are very hardworking individuals, fourth, fifth generation ranchers, and a lot of these people are just unknown of what to do. They just don't want to have this issue. So that's the ideal person to work with, is somebody who's not just like, I hate wolves and I don't want them. I gravitate towards the people that just want the help, that just say, hey, I don't mind wolves, I don't necessarily like them, but I just don't want to have any issues with them. And I say, hey, I totally understand. I mean, I love wolves personally, very dear to my heart. That animal, that specific species, is very dear to my heart, but I'll tell you right now, if I saw a wolf chewing on one of my horses, I'd go out there with my rifle and I'd shoot the animal. I would hope that I've done everything I can to prevent that conflict from happening in the first place, prior to that ever even coming into existence, prior to that option ever being even on the table. So if that animal jumps through all my gauntlet of non-lethal deterrence and gets in there, then I guess I only have one more option. But what I saw in the beginning is that people just weren't really trying to coexist. They just wanted no wolves in the landscape. So I think once we realize that this is not a choice between one or the other, wolves in the landscape or ranching in the landscape, that we actually can find a solution. This is an opportunity to find the best way to coexist with large carnivorous animals. And wolves are one of the most polarizing animals there are. We either love them or hate them. They're either demonized or they're looked at as fluffy stuffed animals, and either of which are not true. They're a wild animal. There is no evil in them, and there is no, they're not helping old ladies walk across the street by any means. They're a wild animal, and that's something that really needs to kind of get through a lot of barriers to a lot of people, is that these animals are just doing what they're naturally supposed to do. And if we leave a different kind of food source out there and we don't actually attend to their needs and don't actually watch over their well-being, then wolves will take the path of least resistance, just like you and I would. Everything will try and do what's easiest to live and be most effective in that. So I'd love to talk more about how I do all this work. I'm going to introduce that in another video so I don't bore your brains out here. I just kind of wanted to give you a little context and a little bit of background on how I got to doing what I'm doing. I get that question a lot, so I hope that this will help. I really have high hopes that this YouTube channel will help me kind of convey some of my thoughts, convey some of my perspectives that I've been given the beautiful opportunity to learn out here and experience. I'm hoping that we'll encounter some amazing animals together. We'll have some really cool animal engagements together. You'll see some videos of those coming up soon, I hope. Some old videos that we're going to kind of compile and put together. So I think that'll be a great part of the adventure. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to meet some amazing people if they're willing to get on the channel and kind of be interviewed. So, I mean, a little scary for a lot of people. This is all new and scary for me, but I'm sure that we'll be able to find some people who kind of impart what they've learned and impart what they've experienced out here. So thanks again for coming along. I appreciate it. And always remember, if we let it, nature will show us the way. So until next time, guys, I'll see you soon. Take care.